All right, hi everyone. Welcome to Mindgasms. So I am Andrew, aka Corrupt Mindgasms, for the purposes of this video, and I'm going to talk about whether Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has been corrupted by China because there were recent investigations into foreign interference because the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation, of course, Justin Trudeau's father, it received a $200,000 donation from China. So there have been accusations of corruption due to that, even though Trudeau himself is not actually a member of it anymore. However, the person named David Johnston, who was investigating this, is a member of the Trudeau Foundation himself, and I'll get into more detail about it as we go along here. All right, I'm going to start with this little short Twitter video here. Let's full screen this. All right.
Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation's executive board has announced that they are all resigning. This comes amid controversy over a donation made by a Beijing-linked donor. The foundation's board of directors, president, and CEO have all resigned. In a statement, the foundation said the political climate surrounding the donation received back in 2016 has put pressure on management and staff. The foundation was given $200,000 by a political advisor to the Chinese government. The Globe and Mail has alleged the donation was linked to the Chinese government's plot to influence Justin Trudeau after he became Liberal leader.
Okay, so the key word there is alleged, and usually when an article says alleged, that is a reason to be suspicious, and it is in this case too, although perhaps less so because the Globe and Mail is kind of a respected Canadian news outlet, and although, the things in the so-called establishment tend to be like not always up to snuff, either, of course. But those are two key things to keep in mind. Alleged connections to China's attempts to interfere in Canadian elections and corrupt the Canadian government, if not Trudeau himself. Those are alleged connections, so they're not concrete. But and the Globe and Mail, the Globe and Mail would have probably said something more certain if there was more certainty behind that. So keep that in mind too, for sure. All right. I'm going to stop that screen share and go to this next one with Trudeau commenting briefly on it. Here we go. So David Johnston, like I said before, he is the person who investigated whether there has been corrupt foreign influence by China on Trudeau and the Canadian leadership through the Trudeau Foundation. But like I said, he himself is a member of the Trudeau Foundation, so I don't know why that's not considered a conflict of interest. And I'm kind of on the fence about Trudeau personally. I voted for him once, but not every subsequent time. But I'm not as against him as some people are, but I'm certainly not as for him as some people are either. Anyway, let's get into what he said here about it.
You're not bound to follow the recommendations of David Johnson. And we saw the other party leaders all say that you should go ahead with public inquiry anyway. Is there any chance you will do that? And if not, why not?
I committed to listening very carefully and abiding by the recommendations that the former Governor General made, and he explained and justified his thought processes by it, and we will be following his recommendations.
Okay. So, that's obviously a lot of political speak and word salad there. But let's get it. So I think that, I don't know, like, I just, as much as I'm not as critical of Trudeau as some other people, I really don't like the super fake political way that he speaks about stuff. And the reason I've only voted for him once is that I thought him legalizing weed federally was a historic good. Even if I didn't smoke weed myself, I think I would think that. But I don't like most of what he's said and done before then, and there have been other and then there have been other corruption scandals like the SC Lavalin scandals, where he was arguably accepting another corrupt payment from someone to uh, basically be influenced financially by them. But anyway, so now we're going to go into a brief clip to show multiple sides of this argument. Pierre Poilievre, the current United Conservative Party leader in Canada, I think, if I remember correctly, they're the party who is the leader of the official opposition, although don't quote me on that because I haven't double checked that. So let's go into what he said about it a little bit there. I didn't restart this clip, so what he says.
I want to tell you, I think Trump was wrong
Oops,
when he
on clip there.
David Johnson
here we
is
go.
ski buddy, chalet
It's
neighbor,
quiet.
family friend, and member of the Trudeau Foundation. He has no business in this job because it is a fake job that he is incapable of doing impartially. And none of his recommendations can be taken seriously because he's in a conflict of interest. And frankly, it's incredible that he didn't even mention the Trudeau Foundation in his report, even though publicly available intelligence showed that the dictatorship in Beijing had given money to the Trudeau Foundation for the express purpose of buying the love and loyalty of Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada. Now, Johnson's part of the Trudeau Foundation, so of course
he's using very charged and biased political language, of course, but I'm not so sure that China themselves said, I don't think it's actually true that they said that it was deliberately for the purposes of, basically corrupting Trudeau. Even if that's the truth, do you really think that would be that dumb? It is true, like I said, though, that David Johnston, who did the investigation, is himself a member of the Trudeau Foundation, though. So that seems like definitely a reason to at least be very skeptical of his findings, although that doesn't mean that they're bullshit, as I'm sure a lot of conservatives are saying.
He wouldn't want to investigate himself, but frankly, that's why he should have recused himself. As for any proposals he might have to silence me, the answer is no, I will not be silenced. David Johnson.
Okay, so yeah, like I said, he's really using very politically charged and biased language because he's the leader of the United Conservative Party, and he's very much not a fan of Trudeau. He's kind of like crackpotty-ish too, in my opinion, a little bit. But I mostly agree with what he said there, except for he's kind of being a little bit hyperbolic. Anyway, just to look into this a little bit more, I'm going to briefly skim over a few parts in this article, and this is from CTV, so this will be biased too. All of these different sources will be biased, but I just wanted to present a few different and conflicting sources here. So we're going to go through just bits and pieces of this article here. All right. So let me get a sip of water. Oh, I think I turned my volume up too high here. Go back down to there. So, all right. Okay, no public inquiry into foreign interference. Trudeau backs Johnston's public hearings plan. Oh yeah, this is an important part to clarify here. Oh yeah, I'm gonna put on my glasses for reading here. So I was confused a little bit, so I had to look this up because there's an important but subtle difference here. So the David Johnston recommended no public inquiry, but he said that he will do public hearings. So I'm not entirely sure what that means, but I think it means there's not going to be like a full legal investigation, but he's going to have public hearings and trying to uncover things for the public for the sake of transparency. That seems to be the situation to the best of my understanding. All right, so Public process is required on the issue of foreign interference. Special rapporteur David Johnston says no, but not in the form of a public inquiry. I'm going to skip down to his findings here. What conclusions did Johnston reach? These are the four main initial conclusions. And he wrote a 55-page interim report about it that dives into the issue of foreign interference more broadly, examines what was alleged and the veracity of related reporting in 9 specific cases, what he learned from speaking to those involved, and steps taken to counter and communicate about foreign intelligence. In Tuesday's report, Johnson includes 4 additional initial conclusions. More needs to be done to counter the unquestioned attempts by foreign governments to interfere in Canadian affairs. A lot of this is kind of like platitudes and word salad political speech, but like, for example, what does that mean? More needs to be done. What exactly is this more that is going to be done? And will it be done? He says it needs to be done, but will it be done? Anyway, when viewed in full context with all relevant intelligence, several leaked materials that raised legitimate questions turn out to have been misconstrued in some media reports, unquote. Well, yeah, that like pretty much always happens, right? It's very rarely the case that the way things are reported in the media is exactly the way it seems. Like this corruption case, I don't think is as black and white one way or the other as a lot of people think it is. I'm sure a lot of people who were already haters of Trudeau think that this is like the worst corruption ever. And I bet people who are biased towards him think that there's nothing to see here. But to me, it seems like perhaps corruption, but not full on intentional corruption. And I don't think that like China is in Justin Trudeau's pocket, but there's definitely some at least really bad shit going on that should not be happening and should be stopped. Like one aspect that I think for sure is that David Johnston should not have been the one to do this investigative report, because someone who is on the Trudeau Foundation should not be investigating whether the Trudeau Foundation has been corrupted by foreign influence, and thus Justin Trudeau and the Canadian government by extension. Okay, so point 3 here. There are serious shortcomings in the way intelligence is communicated and processed from security agencies through to government, but no examples of ministers of the Prime Minister knowingly or negligently failing to act have been identified. So that's important wording there too. Knowing or negligently. So does that mean that in order for it to be negligent behavior, you have to do it knowingly? So he could have accidentally done some corrupt stuff, but he didn't do it knowingly? Or did he do it? Is it possible that you can do it knowingly but not negligently? I kind of doubt it. It's very important to pay attention to this specific language. No, point 4. His findings should be referred to and reviewed by the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, NSICOP, and the National Security and Intelligence Review Committee, NSIRA. Both oversight bodies should report publicly if they disagree. I think these are like Canadian security agencies, as you can see, right? For those of you watching who are not Canadian. All right, I'm going to skip to the next part here. Why not a public inquiry? Johnson revealed Tuesday that when Trudeau appointed him, his preliminary view was that he was very likely to recommend a public inquiry. After considering whether a public inquiry would enhance public trust in Canada's electoral process, Johnson said the sensitive material and information that would lie at the heart of whether the federal government did enough to confront the claims of interference cannot be aired publicly. Oh, okay. I wonder why he said that, though. See, that's just going to make, even if there isn't actually anything to be suspicious about there, that's just going to throw fuel on the fire of conspiracy theorists who are taking this in the most hyperbolic direction possible. Even though I think, like, you could perhaps convince me that this is corruption in everything except on paper, but legally speaking, it's not. And perhaps that's what matters, because it was legally proven to be fair that all the Russiagate, or at least the enormous majority of the Russiagate stuff to do with Trump, was just bullshit too. So that was not being able to be legally proven in court either. So I think it's important to go with the legal jury, even though there are certainly problems with the criminal justice system in every country. Anyway, let's go to the next part here. Opposition still want inquiry. Of course they do. Deciding against recommending a public inquiry, and further, deciding to take on the public hearings himself, given the heightened politicization surrounding his appointment, was quickly met with considerable ire from the opposition parties, who have ardently been pushing for an independent airing of the facts. Yeah, Pierre Poilievre, he wants basically all of these details that David Johnston rather, have been investigating. He wants them to all be revealed to the public, whether they're classified materials or not. I mean, that's a complicated issue too, to me, because I would like to know what they're all about, but I don't know. Is it classified secrets who could get someone killed? I think that honestly actually rarely is a thing that happens. So, but I'm still kind of on the fence about whether the public should be allowed to see it or not. I tend to be instinctively anti-authoritarian about most issues, but not all issues. And yeah, about this issue in general, it reminds me of, like, the whole Edward Snowden and Julian Assange case. And in that case, I think it was fine for them to share everything. So maybe it would be in this case, but maybe there are different circumstances that warrant a different reaction. I don't know. Let me know what all of you think about this in the comments. Okay, what's next for Johnston's work? Tuesday's report from Johnston was not meant to be the end of his work on the file. He was already mandated to spend the months ahead continuing to take a more all-encompassing look at the issue of foreign interference and the integrity of Canada's democracy, and report on his further findings. I think that's good that he's investigating it, but if he's reporting on his further findings, then will anything actually be done about it after the report? Because I'm kind of politically cynical, it seems to me that often when stuff like this happens, someone does a report and then nothing gets done about it, or people say pointless platitudes and make pointless promises on which they never follow through. So I don't know what the outcome of this. So after we have already had the findings is debatable. So I don't know. Like I said, let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think that Trudeau is as corrupt as possible? Do you think that since David Johnston's investigation found that there was no there was no corruption that was done knowingly or negligently? So that's the specific language. Basically no corruption through no knowledgeable corruption, and no corruption through negligence. So I think that, I guess I'm somewhat satisfied that, legally speaking, Trudeau himself and the Canadian federal government are not like directly in the pocket of China, but I am definitely skeptical of this result too, because David Johnston, who is a member of the Trudeau Foundation, should not be investigating whether the Trudeau Foundation has been corrupted by China, especially since whether he actually is even a fan of Trudeau or not, everyone, even just from a strategic point of view, everyone in Canada, or everyone who knows anything about this, especially people who are already very much against Trudeau, are just going to think that this result was going to happen regardless of what his findings were, right? And maybe that's not true. Maybe he's being honest, but I can totally understand why people are skeptical. Anyway, yeah, let me know what you think in the comments about all this. Do you think that Trudeau is so corrupt that he's literally in the pocket of, well, not literally, he's in the pocket of China? Or do you think that these findings have shown that he's completely innocent? Or are your thoughts somewhere in between those two polar opposite possibilities, as I would say is the case with me. All right, anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you appreciated this little investigation into Trudeau possibly being corrupted by China. This corruption stuff is always very interesting, even though I think it's often played up more than it needs to be. But that being said, corruption is definitely a thing that happens all the time in politics. People just exaggerate it a lot of the time. Anyway, yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Share this everywhere. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Share this everywhere with all your friends. Share all these awesome, sexy mindgasms. And click that bell to be notified when I come out with new videos. Next one should be tomorrow. I'm going to talk with my fellow fantasy nerd friends, Dusty and Tristram, about a book called The Heroes, which is the second standalone book in Joe Abercrombie's grimdark fantasy series called First Law, which I think is even better grimdark fantasy than Game of Thrones / Song of Ice and Fire, personally. So check out us discussing that. And yeah, check out my Patreon page. The link is in the description as always. And like I always say, most importantly, always remember this: the funk cures all, and groove is in the heart. And I'm not a fan of Trudeau. He probably is corrupt in some ways, but probably is also not directly in the pocket of China. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. All right. Thanks again, everyone, and adios until next time.